Hey guys, Kat here again, the CatBeyond podcast. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. If you've listened to the previous episodes, thank you so much for giving me your time, and I hope that you are enjoying these and getting something out of them. Just to sort of set the scene right now, I actually have no water or tea. I left it inside, but maybe I should change that in a minute. But I am outside sitting under the light of the full moon in Pisces. It is 2:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in Florida, and that means that the moon was just exactly full about an hour ago. And I've just been sitting here, I don't know, for a good 30 minutes, I think, getting what I call a moon tan. Sometimes when I don't get as much sunlight for a couple days, it's really nice when the full moon is this bright and the sky is this clear. It's nice to sort of soak in that version of the light. It's like the gentlest version of sunlight that you can get, and it's like it's been filtered and transmuted, and I really have a special kind of love for that. But I did realize that I'm feeling so much from this full moon, and as I've been sitting here, I've just been thinking, and I thought I may as well record this and check in with you guys and ask you guys kind of the same questions I've been asking myself, assess and review some of the same things that I've been going over. So let's get into that, but I'm going to pause and go grab my glass of water, and I will let you guys do the same. Also, just so you guys don't worry about me and my sleep habits, I'm only up this late because I happened to take a 3-hour nap from I think about like 7 to 10 or so, like 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. and it has thrown me off a little bit, but I also think it was quite magical because this does sometimes happens when the full moon is at night, where it's like I really want to be able to take in the energy of it, so my body sort of demands that I nap early, like ahead of when I would have gone to bed, and then it wakes me up in time to experience the full magnitude of the moon. So I'm actually so thankful that it panned out that way, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of the podcast. So if you listened to episode 1 about the September astrology, I was saying that I didn't really want to make too big of a deal or focus too much on the full moon or new moon and like dive in way too deep to them, and I think that was really necessary for that podcast because it was like 79 minutes long as it was. And also what I've realized that I didn't mention in that podcast is that the reason I've stopped trying to predict too much about the full moon and new moon is because even though I like to have a really good idea of general trends in astrology, the general sort of like, you could call it the current, like I like to know which way the wind is blowing, you could say, but then when I'm actually out on the sea, I want to just be there and feel it, and that's kind of what full moons and new moons are for me, is like I don't really want to expect from them. And that's actually something that I think there was like a while last year where I sort of took a pause from astrology because I was like, I don't want to have presumptions or assumptions about the future. I don't want to have too many expectations about things. And since I've sort of changed my tune and allowed certain things to just be presented as opportunities to see in astrology, okay, like I'm not trying to predict my life or expect something from my life. I'm trying to look at opportunities and energies that are available to me. And then the more minor things, I really just want to be there and feel them in the moment, and not have preconceived notions of what I'm supposed to be feeling or experiencing during those. So right now it is the Pisces full moon, 10 degrees of Pisces in Virgo season. And what I find myself reflecting back on is 6 months ago and a year ago. That's something that I really like to do at full moons, especially because the opposite of what's happening now happens every 6 months. It's like everything is so perfectly laid out in the fabric. But that means that 6 months ago we had the Pisces season Virgo full moon. And obviously about a year ago, I believe it was around September 13th of last year, we had the what's going on right now, which is the Virgo season Pisces full moon. And then the back in March, I think it was around the 9th, I want to say, maybe the 9th or 10th, that we had the Virgo full moon. So those are some points that you might want to start reflecting on from now on when you have a full or new moon, just thinking about the period 6 months before and the period a year before, and checking in with yourself with what has changed, what hasn't, how have I grown, how have I changed, how do I still want to grow or change, and was there anything from, this is something I really love to do, was there anything from the past that I have since let go of that I actually wish I could bring back into my life, and how would that integrate with where I currently am right now? So like, were there dreams that I let go of because there were things that took priority? Like, did I solve those things that took priority, and now do I have room for those dreams that just at the time were like, okay, I just can't focus my time or energy or attention on these, they'll have to be on the back burner. Can we bring those back around? And I think that's relevant in the sense that Mars is going retrograde, and I really like, let me go on a little tangent off about them, like away from the moon right now and onto Mars retrograde and retrogrades in general, that I always vow never to fear a retrograde, but also just to be like cautious and aware is the energy I try to bring to them, because sometimes they really do catch me off guard, and they'll bring up things that I did not feel prepared to take another look at or take another feel at, to feel again. But we haven't had a Mars retrograde in a while, and I think that's worth talking about. So I'm gonna, I think, kind of go back and forth, because I think the fact that this full moon is happening exactly a week before Mars goes retrograde in Aries, I feel like there is a correlation between them. Like, especially, I've talked to so many people today who were just really buzzing with a very like alive, fiery, fresh energy that I was like very much associating with Aries. And I was like, well, nothing extra is in Aries today to account for that, like Mars, of course, is in Aries, Chiron is in Aries, Eris is in Aries, but nothing is different about today versus yesterday as it relates to Aries or fire energy. So I'm feeling like what we're picking up on is this sense of change coming in our relation to Aries energy and fire energy. So about retrogrades, I have to be honest, I'm like a little nervous about the Mars retrograde, because Mars in Aries is such a strong placement already, and because retrogrades can be so unpredictable in terms of what they ask of us to remember and then to sometimes change or redo. I'm nervous because this is my Mars. I'm getting my Mars return, and anytime you have a Mars return, it's a look at the way that you relate to your personal power and your drive and your ego and your motivation. And that's some of like what I touched on in episode 1. So when somebody has a Mars return, they can be extra fiery, they can be extra like on edge or irritable or frustrated, but on the positive side, you can also get really clear on your ability to self-motivate and self-discipline, and like I talked about in the last episode, getting a different view of your worth and value as a person, and just sort of your individuality and your individual direction in life or at the moment, because that does change throughout your life. So I was excited to have a Mars return that lasted 6 months, because I felt like those were all things that I really needed to work on. They all relate to the solar plexus, and that's a chakra that not only is typically one of the most complicated chakras for everybody, I would say, but definitely for me, it's one that I do keep finding myself coming back to it's one of the more mysterious ones in some ways. It is related a lot to unconscious emotional and mental issues, just unconscious issues itself, things to do with digestion, how we digest our life experiences and our emotions, and anything that we take in through the body, any energies that we're picking up, especially if you tend to be kind of an empath. So with my Mars return, I was excited to have to look at all of that, and especially that it would be 6 months, knowing that I would get to really take my sweet time, which for me is a value that I have. I really like being able to take my time. If you couldn't already tell from the length of these podcasts, I require a lot of patience with myself and from other people, and it's something that I try my best to bring with everybody in my life. Of course, like, nobody's a saint, so I'm going to get impatient and irritable sometimes, but it's a value that I have, that I really want to always push myself to be more patient with people. So knowing that my Mars return would be so prolonged gave me this sense of, okay, I'm going to get to really have a thorough look at all of these issues. And it's why I'm excited for retrograde, because already Mars has had a long stay in Aries. It's already been there over 2 months, which is longer than it normally stays in a sign. And then now it's going to retrograde back through, and then it'll go again forward over all of those same points. So we're all going to get a dose of that, because anytime that the planet is in its home sign, it's more of a collective return, because it's like the purest version of that energy. So I think everybody's getting a Mars return. The world is getting a Mars return. And I like, to me, that makes so much, what's going on in the world makes so much sense when I think about this specific astrological transit. Like, you could talk about so many other transits as it relates to what's happened this year, but I feel like Mars in Aries has been one of the most influential aspects in informing what's going on for everybody. Let's pause and take a drink of water. So why did I go on this tangent about Mars in Aries? As I said, its proximity, the retrograde proximity to this full moon, feels that they are very correlated, and I do feel that way because Virgo and Pisces, which are the predominant energies at this full moon, they have a lot to do with service, a lot to do with healing. It can have a lot to do with, I would say, self-sacrifice, but just like a lot of generosity, a lot of really giving energy, really loving energy, and seeing the picture outside of ourselves. They can both be kind of humble energies in their own ways, of like sometimes prioritizing others or prioritizing things outside of themselves. But I think when in balance, it's a really beautiful mix and a realization that when you heal a balance, or when you heal an imbalance within yourself, when you take care of yourself, when you prioritize all of your needs, you are in the best position to be of service to the world and to fulfill any soul purpose or life mission that you have. And it also comes from a place that's less likely to have you burning out when you've like just started to run towards your life purpose, but you're all of a sudden like, oh gosh, but I wasn't taking care of myself, and now I'm sick or I'm exhausted and I'm of no good and no service to the people that I was wanting to serve. And because Virgo and Pisces are quite prominent in my chart, that axis is very strong in my chart because of my midheaven and my IC, which are something that I could talk about in another episode. That is a lesson that I've had to learn in relation to service and my career as a healer, my career as a creator of things that I intend to help people heal themselves and boost their energy. And as it relates to Mars in Aries, I think that it's a really good balance for that Virgo-Pisces dynamic of sometimes overgiving or overgenerosity or prioritizing others over self, because Mars in Aries is an energy that, while it does want to fight for the collective battle, it's the sign where it knows that unless it trains intensely, it's not going to be a good soldier. Like, that a weak soldier is of very little use to an army or to a battle, that sometimes it actually can take away, because then other people have to take care of that soldier or look out for them because they're not holding their own. They're not bringing their best to the battlefield. So that's something about Mars in Aries that really has a handle on what do I have to do for myself to be at my strongest, to be of use in battle. And that's just a really beautiful dynamic to balance out the Virgo-Pisces energy, and I feel like that's very present right now. And I also feel like that is a very marked difference from last year, when I believe that Mars was in Virgo at the last Pisces moon last year. And that's a whole other topic. But let's just talk about the full moon itself and what it's bringing up in terms of timeline. So, like I said, think back to around early to mid-March of this year. We were right pre-quarantine, pre-COVID. I don't know what you were doing. I'll just talk about what I was doing, because my purpose in this is to ask you questions, but also just talk about what I want to reflect on. Oh, by the way, about a half hour ago, right before I started the podcast, I was thinking about how much I've healed since March, because it was a very upsetting... I had a couple really upsetting days in March right around the full moon that I'll talk about sort of vaguely, but right when I was thinking about that, I very specifically feel better and feel healed about those things that I was so upset about. A white bird flew over, and it's 2 a.m. There's no birds around. I don't know what kind of bird this was. I'm sure it wasn't a dove, but I don't know what kind of bird is that white, but it was perfectly lit up by the moon and just absolutely stunning. It was just one bird. He flew right over me, not very far up, maybe 20 feet in the sky above me, and it was just this really wonderful, magical moment, being yes, good job. You did heal from that. You have done the work that was necessary to get you to this point. And okay, so let's see, I think it was right around March 5th or 6th or something like that, I saw something that was so upsetting, because it just really messed with my head. It really messed with my head. It wasn't something upsetting in the world. It was that it made me question a lot of things, and question my emotions, and question conclusions that I had come to, and question closure that I had come to around a past relationship. And I was just well, what does this mean? Does this mean anything? And what is the bigger implication of this? I really have to stay vague, because I'm, my Scorpio moon is just not going to let me post this if I give any sort of real detail about this. But suffice it to say, I found it very upsetting, and I felt, this is dramatic, but I felt mentally violated, in the sense that I felt my mind was still psychically open to this person that I had a relationship with. And I was well, what does that imply? Does that imply that that's me opening my mind to them, or them opening their mind to me? What is the deal here? And how do I get rid of that? Because I don't want to I had gained such a sense of composure. Yeah, that's a kind of Freudian slip there, but closure and composure around that. And all of a sudden, I was like, am I separated or disconnected from this person at all, or are we still connected? And does that mean we'll always be connected? And will this be something that just keeps coming up again and again? And so right after that, I went to Okeechobee Music Festival for the weekend for like 3 days, and it was so magical. It was like 3 days and nights of good music, of colorful flashing lights, of friends. My sister and I went together. Her boyfriend was there for part of the time, and he's great, and we've gone to music festivals in the past. And then one of my best friends also happened to be attending the music festival, like as a last minute thing, because one of our friends from high school was performing, which was like such a like full circle magical moment to see my friend from high school performing on a big stage, just absolutely killing it, being like just so good at what she does, having such presence and charisma. And getting to see her have that win, like getting to see any of your friends have a win is such a glorious feeling, because most of the time you've like seen them go through, if not all the grueling aspects, you've just like seen them working hard for a long time and seen that they've been putting energy and passion into this pursuit of theirs. And then to see them get these full circle moments, you're just like, okay, I'm so happy for them. And also on a personal note, so exciting to see somebody attain something, because it means that you can too. Like anytime that you see somebody reach or accomplish a goal, you can allow yourself to channel that into yourself. I don't know if you can hear my cat, but you can allow yourself to channel that vibe of success, of attainment, of achievement. Oh, I think the sprinklers just went on. So that was magical in itself. And then one of my best friends was attending because that friend of ours, actually, you know what, let me just like shout them out here. My friend Alexis Merides, Lex Famous, was the one on stage performing with Overjoy Music, her group. And it was my friend Bridget who came to the music festival because Alexis was able to give her, a comp ticket, I assume. And it was so funny because Bridget and I didn't know that we were going to be at this music festival at the same time. I hadn't seen her in probably 3 months, and I'm smelling a very weird smell. So strange. Anyway, so yeah, I hadn't seen her since the beginning of January, and now I guess at that point it had only been 2 months, but it felt like a very long time. We were both aware that like so much had changed and expanded for us within those 2 months. So we didn't know that the other was going to be there until I think like a day or two before the festival, and I told her, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going. Like I had been sort of deciding last minute if I would or not, and all of a sudden I told her that I was, and she was like, what? I'm going too. Like, that's incredible. So, and she lives like 4 hours away in St. Pete, so it was like this wonderful sort of middle point between us where we were able to just have this like lovely meet cute or rendezvous with each other amidst all of the craziness that was just about to start. And it was like we knew that quarantine was probably going to happen, that I probably wasn't going to be able to like go see her for longer than I normally go without seeing her. So it was just this lovely like, okay, I'll meet you there, I'll meet you at the fountain. Shout out Amber Khan. If you don't know about the fountain concept, let me know, or listen to her podcast about it. It's really a beautiful, beautiful concept to keep in mind at all times. So I saw her there, and I was just able to really release so much confusion, so much intensity around that moon, around the Pisces moon in mid-March. And everything came at the perfect time. It was like this incredible gift from the universe, because I didn't even pay to be there at the festival. My stepmom got free tickets, and I got them from her. So it was just like the universe gave me this really beautiful gift the whole weekend. It was like so perfectly aligned with what had just shown me, this thing that I shouldn't have even seen. The thing I saw, it was a total fluke that I saw, because like I wasn't following this person on social media, the past relationship person. Like, I wasn't checking for them, I wasn't trying to see what they were up to. Like, the universe sent me this thing of him, and I was just like, what on earth is the universe up to? And then literally the day after was when Okeechobee started, and I was just like, all right, I have to just sort of leave all that behind, enjoy this present moment to the fullest. And I was very aware that quarantine was probably going to start within a week or two, and so I was like, enjoy it while you can, because this might be the last thing that you get to have like this intense amount of community for a while. It was like the last big bang. Ooh, I'm starting to realize, okay, like I'm probably in association with this going to repost some kind of videos from Okeechobee Fest as like a bit of a throwback and in relation to this podcast. So those should be up by the time I post this. So yeah, and I mean, Okeechobee, it's like, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people go to Okeechobee Fest. I never actually looked at the numbers from this year, but it's an immense amount of people in a small space, and you get this super electric energy of the collective, and everybody there is there because they want to enjoy themselves, they want to listen to music, they want to be happy. Like, such a Piscean concept, like such perfect timing to have a music festival during Pisces season, where the weather is beautiful. At least in Florida, the weather was absolutely perfect that weekend, and everybody's just there to like love and be happy and enjoy themselves and lose themselves and escape into complete presence with the vibes around you and the people around you. And like, it's, music festivals are one of those magical things where like, you go with no expectations, and you don't always even know people, or sometimes even if you're with people, you really want to. My cat is making some noises outside. He's outside with me, but kind of far away. So just, yeah, like I said, such a magical Piscean concept to have a music festival right at that time. And I just knew like I needed to soak it in and just be like with that crowd and feeling the energy of that crowd around me, and like store it all up to make it last through this sort of energetic collective winter of not being around many people, let alone large groups of people. So the universe really played a funny trick on me, where it was like, here's this thing that we're telling you, like, yes, you are still connected to this person because you're connected to everybody. Everybody's connected to everyone, and we're all part of the same unit, are all part of the same tribe and team, and like, you just have to accept that. Like, that even if sometimes you want to disconnect because of a desire for closure, you have to get comfortable with a certain balance between closure and knowing that anybody that was ever in your heart will always be there in some capacity or another. And that's a pretty beautiful concept. So that's something that I was reflecting on with this full moon, is like that I feel so much love and peace about what at the time felt kind of disturbing on a mental level, and now I don't feel disturbed by that at all. I've since learned, like, yep, still connected psychically, but it doesn't bother me anymore. I feel really like, in a way, almost comforted by it, just being able to send an energetic ping if I think about this person of like, hey, like, hope you're doing well. I don't actually text it, because in this case, I don't think it would be appropriate, but just saying, like, I hope you're doing really well, and I hope that if any things that mattered for you, that you get whatever you need from the universe, you know? And also that, like, that person taught me many important lessons that I'm still watching sort of the unfolding of ways that that person influenced some of my beliefs, and the beautiful things that have changed because of little, like, ways that some of the things he said would have, like, subliminally gotten into my consciousness. And so just really, like, appreciating that aspect of beauty with that. And then let's talk about the year mark. So, like, that was the 6-month contrast. Let's talk about the year contrast, which would be that, like I said, last year around, I think it was September 13th or something like that. Maybe the 14th, I can't quite recall. Oh my gosh, that was such an intense weekend. That, again, I'm gonna have to be really even more so vague about, but that weekend I was having 4 days of orthobionomy training with one of my mentors, advisors, teachers, and we were learning self-care techniques. And what I mean by that is ways that we either take care of different parts of our body when they're hurting or having tension, and things that we can advise for clients to do in between sessions, or so that they don't have to continue seeing us forever. So just for reference, if you don't know this already, I practice orthobionomy in the work that I do when I'm in person with somebody, working with them physically. I'll incorporate orthobionomy, which is a very holistic modality for healing the body at all levels, at physical, mental, emotional, soul, spirit, all of it. And when I'm in person, like I said, we'll do more of the physical aspects, and when I'm at a distance, I will do more of the energetic aspects that we've learned. And self-care is one of those really amazing things to keep somebody's alignment when they leave the session with you, whether that is in person or at a distance. But selfishly, self-care is so important to me because, and I take back the word selfishly, because Virgo Pisces lesson here, anything that helps me also helps me be of service to the world, as long as the intention is pure. So I have practiced some of these self-cares for going on a good 3 years now, because I had really terrible knee issues years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. And I was going to an orthobionomist who became one of my teachers, not the teacher that I'm specifically talking about. But I was going to her quite routinely to keep my knees aligned so that I wasn't in terrible crippling pain, so that, like, to the point where for a while I couldn't walk, and I was, like, in a wheelchair for a short amount of time because the pain was so crippling. I just could not walk. So these self-cares came in handy in between sessions for keeping myself aligned, and also when that teacher had a pretty serious health issue where she wasn't able to give sessions for a pretty solid 6 months, I was able to keep my knees in alignment by myself. 1, because I had already started training in orthobionomy at that point, and 2, because I was doing the self-cares that I had learned from this other woman, this other teacher, who wrote the orthobionomy self-care book. Her name is Luann Overmeyer. I highly suggest this book. It's incredible. And full of so many resources for self-healing. So I had learned some of those, but this was going to be a full weekend of just going over, like, the vast majority of self-care options that we have for keeping different parts of our body in alignment, putting them back into alignment if they've gone out, releasing tension, releasing pain. And the 2 days before the actual class, one day we were having a very long study group, like a 3-hour study group, going over any questions that we had, as it related to any aspect of orthobionomy, because she is one of the most renowned experts in orthobionomy. She's been studying it for decades. So we did that one day, and then the next day we had what's called round robin, where I think that day it might have been just 3 of us. It was 4 of us actually, where it's a 4-hour session. Each of us gets a 1-hour session, and then the rest of us are all in the room watching our teacher work on each other. So that way she goes over, she verbalizes what she's doing for what problems we've discussed that we have. And so it's beautiful. We each get a session done on us, and then we get to really learn how an expert utilizes orthobionomy in an actual hour-long session. And so it's very... Oh, and there's also an aspect of when you watch somebody getting worked on, your body subconsciously responds to some of those alignment and release techniques going on. So it's really quite healing to watch somebody else be healed. Again, with that, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm seeing that correlation between the collective connection with everybody, the interconnection between all of us and our energy, and how when one person heals, it is beneficial to the entire collective. I love that saying, a rising tide lifts all ships, and I think that's really important to keep in mind as a foundation when healing yourself, that it's not selfish to really dig into and give energy to healing yourself, because it does make a difference to the collective, energetically and literally, in terms of you just being in a better position to be of service, whether that is in a healing career or in any sort of career. Just when you're at a functioning level, you're also bringing good energy to the people around you, to anybody you communicate with. If you're in customer service but you're in a good versus bad mood, you're affecting that person that you're on the line with. So when you're able to be in alignment, you are affecting the alignment of everybody that you interact with or are even near, anywhere in proximity to. So yeah, that was 4 days with this teacher, with my classmates, with really digging into our own bodies. And then when we got to the actual self-care class, this was what was really intense that weekend. So normally when I have an orthobionomy class, we're working on our classmates, we're working on each other, and we're getting worked on. And this weekend was not that at all. We didn't touch anybody. We weren't touched by each other. We were focused solely on being with our bodies and tuning into how these self-care release techniques were feeling to us, what it was affecting in that part of our body that we were focused on, and how that sort of unraveled through the rest of the body. If we're releasing our hips, how does that affect how our shoulder feels? And if we're releasing our wrist, how does that affect how our hand or our elbow or our neck feels? And so really understanding the connections between different parts of our body. And it was honestly so energetically intense. I was drained in a way that I did not expect, because normally it is very draining to spend 2 full days interacting with other people on this level of working with their bodies, tuning into everything that's going on from them, and then also receiving work done on the body, because it really is a lot of work to the subconscious to reorient its perception of itself and its perception of the body. So I didn't expect this to be so intense, but it was. And then I was also going through some really intense emotional things the week before, and I knew I was going to get into some things the week after. And that Sunday, I remember just feeling so aware of my connections to other people energetically, and just wanting a break from it and being I just want to feel just myself right now. As a person who can be very empathic and very porous. Sometimes I think at that time, because of other things that were going on for me, I was finding it really hard to maintain my sense of not just boundary, but my sense of personal protection isn't exactly the right word, but I think because it gives a connotation that I'm having to protect myself from something, it's just more like my individuality and my personhood. I felt like that was getting a little bit foggy, and I was too merged with other people and like what was going on for them, and overly concerned with their emotions and experiences, where I really needed to be giving energy to myself and focused on myself. And that is something that I'm finding a really beautiful contrast in right now at this full moon. Like, how has that changed for me? First of all, I think I've gotten a lot clearer on boundaries, on setting up my shields, and on when I want to let those down and when they're of greatest service to me, in the sense that, like, when is it really good that I can feel what's going on for somebody else, and when do I really need to sort of like shut it down, put my shields up, and tune completely into my own energy and get aligned with that, and then emerge out of that sort of Virgo style hermit cave to be of service outside of myself. And there's just been so many lessons in that over the last year, and I've also learned how to reach out for help from other healers. Like, I've found a distance energy healer that I work with when I'm struggling to keep up my own boundaries, which I think I've seen her in the last year about 4 times. I say seen, but we do distance energy work, and it's over the phone. But that has only been at occasions where what has gone on for me has been so intense that I didn't feel like I could completely heal myself. Like, it was like I didn't have the energy to get outside of my own spiral a couple times. And I'm so thankful that I wasn't stubborn, that I reached out for that kind of help from somebody that I trusted and knew was capable of helping me in the way that I needed to be helped. So that's something that's really changed, is finding a good distance healer, and allowing myself to be a bit more maybe selfish, but like I said earlier, I don't know if that's always the right connotation, but I've almost started to like embrace that word, like just knowing how much it fills me to take care of myself, how much better of service I am to my clients and then all of my customers, and then just like that I'm more able to take care of myself and check in with myself and be clear about what it is I need, and then what I need to do to get myself or give myself what I need. So that's been a big lesson over the last year. I feel like I want to wrap it up because I feel like I've asked enough questions, and I feel like maybe I've given you an idea of the patterns that I've noticed. Again, I think that moons, full moons and new moons are so individual for everybody because of where they fall in your chart. But there's always, because we're a collective, there's always some threads that might be running through for everybody during any specific moon transit. So I'm curious to see what, if any, of that resonated for you and what's going on for you. Like I said in the first episode, I guess you can't really like do comments on these platforms for the most part. So feel free to comment on an Instagram post, and just let me know any thoughts that you had during this podcast. I would really love to hear. I'd love to have some feedback and communication with you guys about that. I hope that by the time you are listening to this, that you had or are having a really beautiful, healing, purifying Pisces moon in Virgo season. And I hope that you stay safe and be well. Love you. Bye.